G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. With the conclusion of the roundtable discussion, and the Australian Treasurer is just defining some debt as good and some debt as bad. If you can make money out of it, it's good, and if you're helping somebody, it's bad.
I think all debt is bad in one way or another, in the sense that it has to be paid for, whether it's a payback or whether it's with interest, and that's something that I think was lost in the Treasurer's comments. On the other hand, I think he does have a point there. You can borrow for worthwhile nation-building infrastructure causes and actually get a long-term return from that, in return for that borrowing and interest. But when it comes to talking about credit card debt, for instance, I think the message here is it's not a question of what you're borrowing, it's a question of what you're paying for. And I think I'd like to see on Tuesday week that the Treasurer is also showing a recommitment to budget repair, actually finding savings, actually finding efficiencies that means that we can actually live within our means.
Patricia, you're not a supporter of bad debt, but I take it you're a supporter of good debt?
Well, I think debt is debt, but there is no doubt, and clearly this is about positioning for the budget, but infrastructure that is nation building, that is, and not all infrastructure is equal, but there is certainly some infrastructure that is going to improve our productivity, improve efficiency, deal with issues around congestion, all of those sort of things. There is some things that will provide a long-term return into the economy. So I get where he's coming from, but it shouldn't be an excuse just to spend, and I'm not sure yet how it's going to be reviewed in the context of our AAA rating, how the ratings organisations will see the debt.
Now, times have changed, though. I mean, for many years, and probably with the exception of Anthony Albanese, I think when he was immigration minister, good South Sydney fan, Albo. But for many years, it was almost sacrosanct for a minister or a shadow minister and talk about debt as anything other than bad. So, Ben, why the apparent change for Morrison talking about debt as an investment?
Well, it's great. He's caught up with the reality. The Reserve Bank of Australia under this Governor Philip Lowe, and Glenn Stevens, the previous one, the OECD, the IMF, have all said we need extra debt while interest rates are at record lows, to build the infrastructure that our cities need. As Patricia was alluding to, infrastructure hasn't kept pace with population growth in Australia. It is a major shift for the Treasurer to have effectively abandon the debt and deficit hysteria. He's caught up with economic orthodoxy, but I think it kind of once and for all slays that idea that debt in itself is bad. Sometimes it's good, actually. I mean, people know that to buy their house, it's good to have a debt and buy a house, and the same goes for building infrastructure. But of course, does depend on what you spend it on. And of course, the government is keen to start re-talking about debt, given it's gone from 153 billion in 2013 and is heading to 363 billion by 2019. But of course, it does depend on what you spend it on. There's good debt, there's bad debt, and then there's really ugly debt. And I hope it's not a mask to put in the $1 billion loan for the Carmichael Adani mine in Queensland.
There you go, Ben.
That's a big worry.
Now, listen, I've got to say, talking about debt, one prominent political figure who has no problem with debt is the President of the United States, Donald Trump. He's in the process of slashing income and company tax rates. He wants to increase infrastructure spending. And, of course, the Prime Minister is going to meet the President later next week. Terry, what do you make of all this?
Well, I think it's good that the Prime Minister is going to meet the President, and from what he said himself, he's going to get a few tips on company tax cuts. But look, I think after the awful phone call he had with Donald Trump in February, to go hightail it the week before the budget, halfway around the world for a short face-to-face meeting with the President of the United States, who bullied him. I just think it's a very bad look, frankly. I think he should just stick at home and focus on his knitting.
Okay, well, Terry Barnes, Patricia Forsyth, Ben Oakwest, thanks so much for being on Sunday Extra this morning.
Thanks very much, Tom.
And thanks so much to all of you for listening to the program this morning. I hope you're enjoying your weekend. All our stories are available online in case you missed one or want to listen to it again. Just head to the RN website and scroll down to Sunday Extra in the program section.
Okay. Yes, it is a bad look for Turning Bull to be going over and visiting Trontal Dump on an aircraft carrier in New Jersey, just before the budget. My personal feeling is that the way Turnbull screwed Trump down to sticking by the black letter terms of Obama's deal on accepting Australia's refugees currently incarcerated in concentration camps on Manus Island and Nauru because they arrived by boat. They're not there because they're bad people. They're there because they arrived by boat and they didn't have any papers. And John Howard said that he was going to decide who comes to Australia and under what terms, and the Liberal National Party, with a lot of support from the Labor Party, which was, initially constituted in 1901 to promulgate and propagate the values of the White Australia policy. So there's not much difficulty for the Liberal Party and the National Party to weld a big block of White Australiaism together and then basically trade seats as captain of the Titanic by seeing who can out-racist the other. And that's pretty much what's happened in the last 20, 25 years. We've gone from Paul Keating making the Redfern speech to a day where we have concentration camps for United Nations certified, registered, bona fide refugees because they didn't fly into Australia. They showed up on a boat like Captain Cook and Arthur Phillip and most of the Euro peons who came here. My wife was born in Burton-on-Trent. She came here on a friggin' boat. So that means my kids are descended from boat people. My father's grandfather came here in 1882 to live, but he come on a bloody sailing boat. So my kids are boat people on both sides, eh? I think Turnbull has agreed to support America with ground troops in whatever America wants to do under Trump's banner in Libya and Iraq and Afghanistan. And we're going to fall in line on whatever America wants to do on Korea as well. Mind you, as I've said a few times in a few different places, Korea's had 67 years of living within range of 15% of America's nuclear arsenal, and they're considered to be internationally unacceptable rogues because they've got 6 atom bombs, some of which are small enough to fit on the nose of a missile, and they keep trying to make missiles, but their missiles blow up. At least they've been blowing up since Donald Trump took over. So there's a school of thought that says North Korea's missile uplinks and downlinks are being hacked. There's a bug in their computers. There's American software geniuses making sure that North Korea's missiles won't work. Or perhaps it's the Chinese who are hacking in there and making sure the missiles don't work, because I'm pretty sure North Korea doesn't make their own homegrown, home-designed, hardened military computer chips to build their computers out of. America doesn't make them either. The Pentagon sources its chips for its computers from the lowest bid tender, and that comes out of China. So there's probably back doors into all the Korean computers. It's just like there's back doors into all of America's computers that have got Chinese chips in them. So yeah, maybe it's the Chinese computer geniuses who are making sure that the North Korean missiles don't actually fly right. Bill Clinton assured North Korea that any attack they made on South Korea would be regarded as an attack on the United States because America has military forces in South Korea, and it would merit a full retaliatory response and North Korea would cease to exist. If Donald Trump thinks that he can fire another 50 or 60 cruise missiles from a distance off the coast into North Korea, like he did into Syria, and it'll have no consequences for Americans because, it didn't hurt any Americans when he fired a bunch of missiles into Syria, I reckon he's got another think coming. The Americans have just had some congressional hearings where one of their war hawks, McCain, has been told that, they've put THAAD, Terminal High Altitude Air Defense Systems, into South Korea to protect a couple of American installations in South Korea and a few cities that happened by coincidence to be nearby. that has absolutely no ability to protect the people of Seoul from the 4,500 artillery guns and, you know, battlefield ballistic rockets like Stalin organs, Katyushas. You know, it's World War II technology, but it still bloody works, you know, because Seoul is so close to the North Korean militarized zone. So all the Americans who are living in Seoul are basically being held hostage by their own president, who's saber rattling. This is the same bloke who 3 times in a 2-hour discussion asked his military briefers, why do we spend so much money building nuclear weapons if we can't ever use them? Right? So turning bull for domestic political reasons to get rid of Manus Island and Nauru so he doesn't have to keep, you know, dealing with riots and shit. And the Papua New Guinea Defence Forces have been firing into the compounds because they want it gone just recently. Yeah, he's agreed to support America's military adventurism wherever they want to, you know, designate somebody to be the bad guys. That is my reading of the current situation. Here in New South Wales, yeah, we've got right into 1984 Big Brotherism, where there is now an actual Department of Thought Crimes at the New South Wales Police. They call it the FIXATED Persons Investigation Unit. And it doesn't exist to look for people who are aspiring to be jihadis and they're going online looking for people to radicalise them. It doesn't look for people who are coming back from having fought overseas as insurgent terrorists, jihadis or whatever, and are coming back into the country, you know, to sort of recruit more enlistees to the cause. They're looking specifically for people who are, quote, capable of self-radicalising around religious, political or ideological issues and thereby may constitute a violent threat to society. For this fishing expedition, they've devoted 17 detectives, plus another 37 psychiatric medically trained personnel. So I'm going to guess there'll be a couple of psychiatrists or maybe just the one, and a few psychologists and a bunch of psych nurses who are prepared to work for the police, trolling through the New South Wales, I presume, population, looking for anybody who is capable of getting cranky enough to decide to go fizz bang pop and carry out some kind of a spontaneous random attack or a carefully calculated, well thought out attack on the society or the individuals or the government departments or entities or quangos which have given them the shits on whatever subject for whatever reason. FIXATED Persons Investigation Unit, the Thought Police. 57 people sitting down with their computers, talking among themselves in the tea rooms, being paid to dream up new things to tell the politicians that they can be frightened of next week, because they've spent all this week spending last week's pay dreaming that up. And they're in this circular feedback loop where the more people they can tell the politicians they have to be paid to be frightened of, the more money they're going to get to be paid to be frightened of them. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Truth is lies. That was what George Orwell said in his epic seminal novel, 1984. Well, yeah. Doubleplus, good, Winston. Doubleplus, good. You have done well. Nevertheless, report to Room 101 for brutalisation, depersonalisation, and repersonalisation. Hut, 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 hut. Sir, yes, sir. How high do I jump, sir? Yes, we're living in 1984. New South Wales PoLice changed from being a service to a force 25 years ago, and now they have a thought crime department. But what are you going to do? Personally, I'm really glad that I'm a vegetarian and I've been a pacifist for 30 years and I haven't got any guns. It means that those 57 professionally paranoid arseholes have absolutely zero excuse to give me a hard time. That's how I look at it. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao.